All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to DAO Talk. This is DAO Talk Weekly, your one-stop shop for everything DAOs. I'm Tommy.
And I'm Frisson.
Frisson, it's been a few weeks, 2 weeks since we've been on the pod. CHG is still co-host, but right now she's at ETCC in Paris, so she is not with us this week. But we got a good episode for you this week. Nice, quick one. Some big updates from the ecosystem. But Frisson, how are you doing? How have you been? It's good to see you again, my friend.
Good to see you too. Welcome back. Tommy went on a little vacay as well. Reminder to everyone in crypto to take vacation or you'll burn yourself out. Excited for CHG to rejoin us. I'm not at ECC. I saw this tweet this morning from our friend Ben at Scopelift, and he was like, "Yeah, when you're not at ECC, but the rest of the industry is, it's like everything slows down for you." It's so true. It's like chill, but it's also kind of lonely. It's like I want to be there. Kind of, but I also don't because I'm really tired.
Yeah, lonely is a good word. I'm just like, what's going on? I know what's everybody doing? And then I look on Twitter and it's like, I'm like, oh yeah, they're all partying in Paris and talking about cool shit and building shit. So that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. But we're here. Yeah. We're here. DAO Talk's here. We have a good episode. Again, nice and quick. Gonna fly through. I think we got 3 big topics covered this week. First one, kind of general, but the regulatory landscape. Some big news in the past week or two. I think I saw when I was on vacation. I got a lot of texts around like the XRP court ruling on it not being a security, and then the effects that's going to kind of have on the greater landscape as a whole and the on-chain landscape as a whole. Frisson, you tweeted, "Now is probably a good time to remind everyone that Tally is here to help with any and all questions you might have about launching on-chain governance." What sparked this particular tweet? And then, we can kind of go into a broader discussion around, the regulatory landscape as it's changed or, has it grown the past couple of days.
Yeah, we're going to keep this episode of DAO Talk super quick, so I'm going to try not to just over-explain like I tend to do. But unless you've been living under a rock, you saw that Judge Torres in the SRC versus Ripple case made a very important ruling last week where she basically said XRP in and of itself is not a security. Whether a given transaction of SRP is a securities transaction is dependent on the facts and circumstances of that specific transaction. And, through that lens, I guess, only the sale of XRP that Ripple made to institutional investors was a securities transaction. And then other important transactions of XRP, like when the company gave XRP to its employees, or when there were programmatic secondary sales of XRP or secondary sales of XRP on an exchange, are not securities transactions. Now, this is in the Southern District Court of New York, which is not the Supreme Court. And I think there's one level of appeals court higher than this, and then the Supreme Court. So there's 2 more higher levels of court than this. So it's not the binding law of the land or anything like that, but it's an important district. Judge Torres is highly respected. Apparently she was, nominated by Democrats. And so, and really brutal ruling for the SEC because all of their other cases, the ones where they're suing Coinbase, the most notably the one where they're suing Coinbase and alleging a bunch of assets trade on Coinbase or securities, this ruling directly contradicts all of their arguments, most of their arguments. It also really is very bullish for airdrops, which is where my tweet came in. I think there's a lot of teams that want to have a token. They want to have on-chain governance. They want to get the community involved in governance, but they've been scared too because the SEC has basically, claimed that anything that isn't Bitcoin is a security. And so I think this ruling is going to be one step on a journey that leads to a massive wave of token of airdrops of people decentralizing their protocols. And so if you have questions about what's best practices for doing that based on all the major airdrops that Tally has been involved in over the last couple of years, let us know. But really excited with this development. I think it's very bullish for the entire crypto ecosystem and also specifically Tally. So let's go.
Yeah, not only are we podcast hosts, but we work at Tally, who is one of the leaders in helping DAOs run meaningful and robust on-chain governance, something we always talk about. If you follow us on Twitter, something, it's kind of an underlying theme of this entire podcast. We bring you the news, but we also provide value if you need it. So definitely reach out to Frisson or I or anyone from the Tally team if you are thinking about airdropping and, want to get some thoughts around on-chain governance. Frisson and the rest of the team, there's not, I would say, maybe I'm a little biased, but like it's probably the best group or people, the best collective of on-chain governance intelligence you can probably speak to in the entire space. So, if we can't help you, we know someone who can. So yeah, definitely reach out. Exciting to see some good news from the regulatory landscape. I think it's something we all predicted or thought this would be the ruling, but you never know. So still 2 more courts, like you said, but some good news finally, I feel like, from the SEC war landscape. Moving right along, Nouns is forking their DAO. A lot of controversy, maybe not controversy, but just conversation around the fork itself. I think Dennison brings up a good point. It's a long thread. I'm just going to read the first part of the thread, and then we can break down quickly what's happening with the Nouns fork, what it is, and what it means. But Dennison brings up a great point. Honest question. If Nouns forks once, why would anyone ever bother to buy a Noun again? Doesn't it create a ceiling for the treasury? Doesn't it basically mean that early holders kind of get screwed? Who would participate in this kind of experiment? Again, Frisson, I think, this is kind of the big question around the entire fork is, what are the downstream effects of this, especially with Nouns being kind of like the poster child, the Bored Apes of DAOs, even though some people say Bored Apes is a DAO.
I don't think the Nouns community would take kindly to
no, you know what I mean.
As the Bored Apes of DAOs.
No, I don't mean like, I guess. I mean like in terms of like social significance of like, it doesn't reflect Bored Apes in any way, like in the way it functions in terms of like the zeitgeist and the way it's viewed. It's the most famous DAO, in my opinion, similar to like Bored Apes or CryptoPunks being the most famous NFT. I'll clarify that.
You should just tweet that and see what kind of reaction you get. Hot take: Nouns is the Bored Apes of DAOs.
We'll clip this and post it on there. Well, yeah, thoughts on the Nouns fork, high level points. We're going to provide links. So if you want to dive deeper, you can, as always. But, how does this affect the ecosystem as a whole, and what should people be like, looking at particularly, as it affects the broader ecosystem down the line?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting from multiple levels. Elad's tweet is really interesting technically. Elad has done a lot of protocol work in Nouns. So if you want to understand how Nouns works under the hood, really great person to follow. I think Dennison's question is kind of okay, so Nouns is making it so taking a step back, one of the important parts of Nouns is not all, but most of the ETH that is used when people buy Nouns goes into a treasury that is then controlled by the DAO. 1 Noun equals 1 vote. Challenge with this is Nouns were very expensive at the start, and they were valued at a much higher amount than the amount of ETH in the treasury divided by the number of Nouns. And then, now it's closer to sort of a value kind of play where the amount of ETH in the treasury divided by the number of Nouns is pretty close to the Nouns price, is my understanding. And so people have kind of started to come in and say hey, I'm going to buy a bunch of Nouns with the eventual goal of actually just, every time Nouns, the value of a Noun dips below the amount of ETH in the treasury divided by the number of Nouns, I'm going to come in and buy some with the hopes of eventually converting that treasury, just basically returning the ETH to the Nouns holders based on, just a simple formula, right? Challenge is that's not very good for the first people that bought it in Nouns. And also the Nouns community, the strongest part of the Nouns community, which is just a group of passionate open source builders. That's not really why they're involved in Nouns, right? They they like the idea of proliferating the meme and kind of like the mission of nouns, and also have a different view of how the treasury should be used. A lot of them think it should be used to kind of fund public goods versus just like returning a value to the nouns, the nouns holders. So Elad and other people in the nouns community built this mechanism where people can fork the value of the treasury away from the existing DAO and then do what they want with it, including, if they want to vote to return ETH to the holders, they can. So I think it's super interesting. There's a lot to unpack. Like, definitely, if you just search nouns fork on Twitter, you can see like a million takes that are super, super interesting. But I think, Denison's questions here is like, okay, but it's cool that we did that, but isn't just going to get forked, and then like the people who first bought in, right, won't get a good value on their noun. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be super interesting to watch in the coming weeks. I think it's going to go live. The fork is going to go live as a nouns proposal sometime pretty soon.
Yeah, like you said, you could just search nouns fork on Twitter and you get a bunch of content this week. We'll run through some tweets before moving to our last subject. Charlie Fang, who has a great article around, the nouns fork. If you want to get a differing perspective from that, we'll link that. But a quote sheet around it. It's been great to see all the engagement re nouns fork lately. Don't think I'm on with this take, but good to be paranoid. Work's not done. Worth the read. That's from Wilson Cusack, who's an engineer at Coinbase. Correct? I think he just joined Coinbase as well. So two gigabrains, go check them out. Another memer tweet. Nouns rage quit feels like buying a sneaker and then wanting Nike to buy it back for you because it's not as cool as you thought it would be. Dana replied, isn't that just kind of like returning? But I think the nuance to that is it's like wearing it around for 6 months and then wanting them to buy it back for you for the same price. So definitely some nuance, some deep, not controversial, but differing takes on Twitter, as always, as Noun does. I feel like everything Nouns does has some controversy around it. If you want to check out Noun's page on Tally, you can see their treasury, how much money they have in their treasury, who are the leading voters, what's been going on the proposal front over the past couple weeks or months. Go check them out at tally.xyz/gov/nounsDAO. Nice, crispy URL. And speaking of Tally, moving right along to our final subject, tweet from us. Big news. Arbitrum DAO Security Council elections are scheduled to begin on the 15th of September, and we are thrilled to announce that Tally will provide the election user interface, something we've been building on the back end. The engineers have been building on the back end for a while, is the interface for the Arbitrum DAO Security Council elections. Frisson, for the people who live under a rock maybe and aren't familiar with Arbitrum DAO, what is the Arbitrum DAO Security Council election and why is it important for the DAO? And I think, why is it a good framework for larger DAOs like this moving forward?
Yeah, so we've talked about the Arbitrum Security Council before on the show. It's a series of multi-sigs with high thresholds. There's like 12 people on them. One of the multi-sigs is a 9 out of 12, one is a 7 out of 12, and they basically have veto power over certain aspects of the DAO and emergency power also over certain aspects of the DAO. In case there's emergency or malicious proposal, they do have the ability to override that as a kind of a safety mechanism against on-chain governance of the DAO. But what's cool about these security councils is they are still controlled by the DAO. And so that's where elections come in. They're supposed to happen every 6 months according to the Arbitrum DAO constitution, and they have shipped the Off-Chain Labs team actually, which is a service provider to the DAO, has shipped a new primitive for on-chain elections, where token holders of ARB can elect the security or rotate in and out these security council members every 6 months, 100% on chain, which is very cool. And Tally is actually going to support it with UI. So we're building all these cool new features to support things like splitting up votes, vote decay, multiple rounds of voting, nomination, et cetera, et cetera. So this is worth checking out, and actually something that I think is going to end up being an important primitive generally in the layer 2 ecosystem as the DAO manages different parts of the infrastructure and ecosystem of each layer 2. So super stoked for this.
We'll link the proposal from the Arbitrum forum in the show notes as well as our tweet and, what we're building from it. Like we said earlier in the episode, anything on-chain governance, really, we are attacking or able to help you build. So if you have any questions, reach out. As always, again, we said pretty quick episode, in and out, 15 minutes, nice and quick, covered 3 big topics from the week. Links in the show notes as well. If you're listening to this the day it comes out on Friday, there's also a Italian newsletter that is coming out in tandem with DAO Talk. DAO Talk newsletter has been not sunsetted, but has been absorbed by the Italian newsletter. So if you want to get your DAO news and also your on-chain DeFi news, just go subscribe to the Italian newsletter. I'll link that below in the show notes as well. We'll see you next week with the trio. Back again. CHG will be back from Paris. So we'll have the trio back for episode 48. Frisson, any final thoughts?
Nah, I gotta go. Great to see you all.